Does the Samsung S26 Ultra have the best smartphone camera? Is it the best phone for video recording? To find out, I compared it to the iPhone 17 Pro. The 17 Pro has the same cameras as the 17 Pro Max and has one of the best smartphone cameras when it comes to image quality in video mode. There are 10 categories and 1 point for the winner of each category. Let's find out who wins. The focus of this comparison is on the video mode, but for the sake of completeness, I also compared the photo mode of the two cameras in the last category. I bought both smartphones with my own money, and this video is sponsored by Insta360 and the Flow 2 Pro. Especially if you plan to film a lot, the Flow 2 Pro is one of the best all-in-one accessories. I'll show you why a little later. Let's start with the comparison and the most important category, the overall image quality in video mode. Today I'll show you many different, somewhat longer test recordings, so you can form your own opinion. Since this first category is the most important, only here will the winner receive 2 points. The wide main camera, whether on the iPhone 17 Pro or the Samsung S26 Ultra, is the camera with by far the largest sensor and the largest aperture. On both devices, the wide main camera is therefore superior to the other cameras. The aperture of the S26 Ultra's wide lens at f1.4 is even larger than that of the iPhone at f1.78. On the other hand, the S26 Ultra has an extremely high-resolution sensor with 200 megapixels. Such a high number of megapixels may be interesting for photos in certain cases, but in video mode it is often considered a disadvantage. The lens of the S26 Ultra's ultra-wide camera also has a larger aperture than that of the iPhone, which of course has advantages in low light. But what I like better about the iPhone's ultra-wide camera is that it has a wider field of view. That's why it's 0.5x on the iPhone and 0.6x on the Samsung. The sensors of the wide and ultra-wide cameras are similar in size on both devices. We'll take a look at the telephoto lenses and zoom factors in the next category. Sensors, apertures, megapixels, these are all specs that certainly have an impact. But in the end, what matters is how the shots look. And one thing is clear, both take excellent video recordings. However, they differ quite significantly in some respects. The recordings from the S26 Ultra often have more contrast and therefore appear slightly darker. The iPhone always tries to keep the face bright and optimally exposed. Sometimes this looks a little unnatural, and sometimes the face appears a little too dark on the S26 Ultra. Due to the higher contrast, the Samsung's recordings have slightly more saturation. But this does not apply to the blue of the sky. The sky is actually always much more saturated on the iPhone. Skin tones sometimes look a little unnatural on the iPhone. Here, with the wide main lens, there are always annoying lens flares in the form of long streaks when shooting against the light with the S26 Ultra. There is certainly heavy HDR processing in the background on both devices. However, the lower contrast of the iPhone means that details in the dark areas are often better preserved. Overall, the Samsung produces a slightly more natural cinematic look, while the iPhone 17 Pro always tries to make the image look as pleasant as possible. Purely in terms of detail, I don't see any relevant differences. Here you can see a 500% magnification. Only the Samsung S26 Ultra is capable of shooting in 8K at up to 30 frames per second. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of 8K. Although the footage is very detailed and can be cropped better if necessary, it requires an extremely large amount of storage space. PCs have difficulty editing the footage, and the footage often has more image noise and a poorer dynamic range because the devices are not capable of processing it internally in the same way as 4K footage. Both ultra-wide cameras also have a macro mode for extreme close-ups. The iPhone does a better job of reproducing colors here. But I don't think the macro mode is that important for video. It's extremely difficult for me to determine a clear winner in this first category. As I said, 8K is not a decisive advantage for me. Personally, I see slight advantages for the iPhone overall, but I understand that the different look is also a matter of taste. For me, it's a tie. 2 points for the S26 Ultra and the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max. However, the S26 Ultra has an advantage when it comes to the telephoto lens and zoom factors. That's because the S26 Ultra not only has one camera with a telephoto lens, but two. One with a 3x zoom factor and one with a 5x zoom factor equivalent to 111mm. The iPhone 17 Pro's telephoto lens falls between the two with a 4x zoom factor and 100mm. However, Samsung's 3x telephoto camera is a heavily stripped down camera, as its sensor is exceptionally small. In addition, the cameras on both devices also offer a 2 times lossless zoom. This allows the iPhone to take shots at 8x and the Samsung at 10x. Here you can see a comparison of an 8x shot from the iPhone with a 10x shot from the S26 Ultra. The Samsung often loses some contrast when taking shots with the telephoto lens. And here you can see a shot taken with the auto zoom feature. That's a cool feature, even if it does result in significantly reduced image quality. Even though the S26 Ultra's 3x camera is not ideal and should be avoided in low-light conditions, the Samsung offers a little more flexibility when zooming. A low-light comparison will follow shortly. This point goes to the S26 Ultra. Let's take a look at the selfie cameras on both devices. An interesting feature of the iPhone 17 Pro selfie camera is that the sensor is square. The main advantage of this is that you can hold the iPhone upright and film yourself horizontally in landscape mode. What I also like better about the iPhone 17 Pro's camera is that at 20mm, it has a wider focal length than the S26 Ultra selfie camera. The iPhone selfie camera also has a larger aperture, which lets in a little more light. Even in good lighting conditions, this leads to slightly better results. I also find that the iPhone's shots look a little more detailed. Both cameras struggle in low light. But here too, the iPhone performs slightly better. For me, this point goes to the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max. The rear cameras on both devices are significantly better than the front selfie camera. Unfortunately, they are not well suited for filming yourself while vlogging, for example, mainly because you cannot see yourself and cannot estimate the framing. This is one of the reasons why tracking with the Flow 2 Pro is so extremely useful. The Flow 2 Pro not only has an integrated selfie stick, which is great for filming yourself while vlogging, but it also has a stable tripod integrated into the handle. You can simply set up the gimbal somewhere and start tracking with the trigger button. The Flow 2 Pro then automatically detects the subject and begins tracking it. Or you can start tracking and recording from a distance with a hand gesture, without touching the gimbal or your phone. The Flow 2 Pro is not just a gimbal for the iPhone. It has full Android support and can track a subject with all lenses, including the new telephoto lens of the S26 Ultra. This means that advanced AI tracking also works with the Samsung. Using the zoom wheel, you can easily zoom in and out and quickly switch between cameras. And don't worry, with the AI tracker, tracking works not only in the Insta360 app, but in all apps. This includes shooting with the Instagram app, TikTok, or the native Samsung or iPhone camera app. One of my favorite features is that the gimbal also serves as a power bank. You can even connect your phone and charge it while recording. And of course, the Flow 2 Pro enables extremely stable shots and cinematic camera movements that are difficult to achieve without a gimbal. If you're interested in the Insta360 Flow 2 Pro, you'll find a link to it in the description below. And if you use the link, you'll also get an additional free gift. It's time to take a look at the low-light performance of the rear cameras. As a reminder, the wide main camera of the S26 Ultra has a larger aperture than the main camera of the iPhone, but the high number of megapixels could be a disadvantage, especially in low light. It's already very dark here, and the main cameras of both devices take very good shots. It's true that the iPhone 17 Pro's shot looks very yellowish, but in this situation, that corresponds to the actual lighting conditions. The iPhone also exposes slightly better than the S26 Ultra. Whose shots are sometimes too dark. But what bothers me about the iPhone are the lens flares that keep occurring in these situations. The ultra-wide camera on the Samsung S26 Ultra also has a slightly larger aperture than the ultra-wide camera on the iPhone 17 Pro. Nevertheless, I see slight advantages for the iPhone here as well. The shots taken with the S26 Ultra have more noise, but you can also see that in low light, the results from the ultra-wide camera are clearly worse than those from the main camera. This applies to both devices. While the S26 Ultra's 3x telephoto camera is not recommended in low light due to its small sensor, the characteristics of Samsung's 5x camera and the iPhone's 4x telephoto camera are very similar. And actually the shots look very similar. But here in the enlarged image, you can see that the shot taken with the iPhone has more detail. This point goes to the iPhone 17 Pro. Both devices take fantastically well-stabilized shots. This applies to the ultra-wide lens as well as the wide main lens, which also has optical stabilization on both devices. The iPhone is better when it comes to camera shake, while the S26 Ultra is better when running. And both devices also have a kind of action camera stabilization. On the iPhone 17 Pro, this is called action mode, and on the S26 Ultra, it's called super steady. However, on both devices, the resolution is reduced and there is a significant crop. The iPhone's shot looks significantly sharper, but the S26 Ultra stabilizes the shot better. Only the Samsung has an additional feature called Horizon Lock, which keeps the horizon straight even in difficult situations. This feature also results in a significant crop of the image and is only available in a reduced resolution, but can be useful in difficult situations. So is there a clear winner? Not quite in my opinion. 1 point for both devices. Both phones support slow motion recording in 4K at up to 120 frames per second. And the shots look very good. Slow motion recording is important for filmmakers because it also allows you to shoot cinematic B-roll footage. Apparently, the S26 Ultra is unable to focus correctly here. The image quality on the iPhone also appears to be slightly better, but for some inexplicable reason, 4K 120 on the iPhone 17 Pro is only available using the wide main camera, even though, unlike on the S26 Ultra, the 2x lossless zoom is available. The S26 Ultra also shoots in 4K 120 with the ultra-wide lens, and that's an important advantage for me, especially when it comes to slow motion and action shots. Considering the slight advantages of the S26 Ultra in the last category, this point goes to Samsung. The cameras on both phones support a mode in which the background is artificially blurred, known as cinematic video mode. This mode is not perfect, especially at the edges and around hair where unnatural transitions often occur. However, the mode has been greatly improved in recent years and is now quite usable. Both recordings look good, and apart from the differences already mentioned, they have similar weaknesses. With the iPhone, you can adjust the intensity of the effect, and you can also change the focus point after recording or even deactivate the effect in post if it doesn't look good. That's a big advantage. This is not possible with the S26 Ultra. The point for cinematic video goes to the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max. Both devices have good internal microphones. You can now hear a direct comparison. For better results, however, you should use an external microphone for both devices. This simply has to do with the distance between the subject and the microphone. In the case of loud background noise, both devices have effects to remove it in post-production. The S26 Ultra has a feature called Audio Eraser. On the iPhone 17 Pro, there is a feature called Audio Mix. For me personally, the S26 Ultra has slightly less bass, but overall it sounds clearer and you hear less background noise. For me, this point goes to the Samsung S26 Ultra. The S26 Ultra's native camera app allows manual settings. You can adjust the exposure and white balance completely manually. This is not possible on the iPhone, but for pros, there is the app Final Cut Camera on the iPhone. This is an Apple app that not only allows manual settings, but also has various pro codecs. And finally, with the new APV codec, Samsung has introduced a lossless codec that enables extremely high quality recording even in 12-bit and is great for video editing. But the codec is still new and is only supported by a few applications. And similar to Apple ProRes, the codec results in very large files. Both devices have log profiles that are well suited for color grading. Apple even offers a ProRes RAW codec. Honestly, it's very difficult to determine a winner here. The iPhone probably has a slight advantage overall, but you have to use Final Cut Camera or a third-party app for most of the Pro features. And I would also like to see manual settings in the standard camera app. I'll leave the judgment in this category to the pros. For me, that's a point for both devices. Personally, I believe that the quality in video mode says more about the quality of the cameras than the quality in photo mode. Photos are now so heavily processed that the software has an enormous influence on them. In addition, with the iPhone, for example, you can use photographic styles to customize the look of your photos to your taste before you even take a picture. But of course, both phones take excellent photos. And much of what we've already said about the different cameras on the two devices also applies here in photo mode. It's interesting to note that the shots taken against the light from the iPhone often have more contrast here than those from the S26 Ultra. The iPhone shoots at 24 megapixels in its default settings. The S26 Ultra only uses 12 megapixels in the standard settings. But of course, only the Samsung can take photos with up to 200 megapixels using the main camera. And these photos allow for extremely strong cropping and still look good. However, 200 megapixel photos have other disadvantages. For example, in terms of dynamic range or colors. Both devices take excellent photos. And today my focus is on video. For this reason alone, I don't want to decide the comparison in the photo category. For me, that's 1 point for both devices. Therefore, it's a tie, and the comparison ends with 8 points to 8 points. Both phones take excellent shots, and as you've seen, it's not that easy to pick a winner. And many things such as colors and the look are also a matter of taste. Write your opinion in the comments. I'd be interested to hear it, and maybe I've overlooked something. You will of course find links to both smartphones below in the description. And don't forget, a smartphone gimbal can make a big difference and offer many new features. You'll find the link to the Float 2 Pro in the description below. You'll also receive an exclusive free gift if you use this link. And if you're interested in why the Float 2 Pro is the best smartphone gimbal, check out my comparison with the DJI Osmo Mobile 8. I'll also put a link to this video in the description. Give me a like as feedback if you found this video interesting. There will be more videos on the S26 Ultra and the iPhone 17 Pro. So stay tuned and see you next time.